Welcome back. Welcome back to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we told you we're going to continue to share life experiences. Today, we have another amazing life experience, and this one is going to get real deep. We have Jose Pereira. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's
Correct
okay.
me if
No, it's
okay.
okay. Perfect.
Thank you. He was held captive in Venezuela. He was the CEO of Citgo Oil Company, but I'm not going to tell you too much because we're going to let Jose tell you a little bit about himself. And then, as you know, Sid is going to kick off the first question. Welcome, Jose.
Welcome for having me.
Thank you. Can you tell the audience just in about a minute or two just to introduce yourself? And then Sid's going to kick off the first question.
Yeah, as you said, I did my career in the oil and gas. I did a 35-year career in oil and gas. And at the pinnacle of my career, I was the CEO of Citgo Petroleum here in Houston. I live in Houston. And in 2017, happened my situation. I was ready to get retired because of 35 years. And, I was called to a last minute call to Venezuela, and it became to be a settlement because at that time they were having issues, the U.S. with Venezuela. They declared that that regime illegitimate, so they were imposing sanctions. They were making an oil ban. So a lot of stuff was going on at that moment, and that became to us. We became political pawns of the situation, and we became hostage during 5 years. The negotiation to bring us back lasted 5 years.
Jesus, Woo, that's insane. Especially when you think you just going going on a work trip,
Yeah.
and here you are. So normally we like to start things like back way at your childhood, but we know there's a lot going on just in that 5 years. So we will start now. What exactly was the climate, the political climate, when you went to Venezuela? What were particularly the issues going on that kind of caused the hostage situation?
Well, that's exactly. There was a very high political situation going on because during that time, the administration that was in place here, as I said, they had declared that that regime is a communist regime had become illegitimate. They did fake elections. So they were have imposing sanctions to the country, to the people, and they did an oil embargo. Very similar that like happened with Russia in the Ukrainian war. And well, we didn't think that that could affect us because I was not a politician. I was a CEO of oil and gas. And when I was called to that meeting, I went with my five top executives, and they declared American spies, that we were spies of the American government. We were accused of corruption, embezzlement, and treason to the country, among other charges. So it was, of course, a sham trial because what they wanted to do is take us as hostages and then leverage negotiators to get our release through some concessions. Because this is something that really, Venezuela is not the only country doing this. There are many other countries doing it. This is something called the hostage diplomacy. It's a very sophisticated way to do diplomacy. That is, that they take normal people with maybe some high profile, and they take it and they leverage to negotiate whatever they want. So it becomes a real evil practice that many countries like Venezuela, Russia, Iran, China, Afghanistan, Myanmar, North Korea, a lot of countries are applying. There are a lot of citizens in that situation all over the world today.
Wow. So whew, whew, I don't even know where to start. Um, so did you feel in preparation of this trip? Did you feel like butterflies? Sometimes you feel as though some things are uneasy. Did you feel a certain kind of way before leaving to go on the trip?
Well, that's a very nice question because let me put the audience in the context of the situation. I was traveling a lot to Venezuela that year because Citgo Petroleum it is a U.S.-based company but belongs to the Venezuelan PDVSA, the Venezuelan oil company. So the headquarters of Citgo the board is in Venezuela. So we were at that year we were revamping a refinery in Aruba, in the Aruba island. Citgo has uh, make an agreement with the Aruba government to revamp a refinery that belonged to a company called Valero. Valero left the refinery, and Citgo had the interest to take control of that refinery. So we were having a big project, and I was traveling that year a lot to Venezuela because I had to go almost even 1 or 2 times in the month to get approval because it was $1 billion of investment. So I was in a regular base traveling to Venezuela. I was always taking care of my security. I was not naive. I was taking care of my security. But when the situation began to evolve negatively with the U.S. government in Venezuela, I talked to my wife. I said, you know what? I'm gonna get retired. I don't like what I'm seeing. So there was something that was not good. I was not feeling good, to tell you the truth. So I went 1 month before this situation happened to me and asked to my boss that I wanted to get retired. And he finally, back and forward, he approved my retirement. He told me they gave me 4 months to get my replacement. So I came back. That was October 2017. 1 month before, I began to prepare all my things. It was Thanksgiving season. So my kids were coming here. I began to prepare my Thanksgiving. I began to prepare my vacation. I was really literally in my retiring mode. And I received this phone call. I was in a movie with my wife that day. I was in a movie, seeing a movie. And I received a call. And when I received a call, they asked me to go the other day to Caracas. I didn't see nothing wrong because, as I said, I was doing it very frequent that year. So it was another more trip. And literally, what I did was that I did like a back and forward 1 day trip. Normally, I took that company plane, flew to Caracas, made the presentation, and came back, and I was in the night in my house. So for me, it was like a normal core of business. But when I was in Venezuela, I began to see the things strange, but I didn't know what was going on. To tell you the truth, because as I said, I was not a politician, and we made a big presentation. Was a big crowd, maybe 1,000 people. I made my presentation of the status of the refinery, the revamping, standing ovation, and for me it was wow. I'm gonna finish my career, with a standing ovation. So I was really happy flying back to Houston, and suddenly I see that appear because this country has a counterintelligence police called the DGSIM. Very scary guys because they use like I always say like a Robocop outfits, and they use these some mask. By the way, the book that I'm gonna put out, if you see the cover of the book, you will see the face of those guys with the mask. The people doesn't believe when you see it looks like Darth Vader, of Star Wars. They are very scary guys. So when I saw almost 20 guys coming to that room, the meeting room, and asked for me, I begin to say, wow, something is happening here. And to tell the truth, when they asked for me and they put us the charge, I believe that was a mistake. Can you imagine being accused to be a spy and treason to the country? It's some things that you cannot imagine. But when we begin to see the evolution of the situation, is that we really thought that we were really in a very serious situation.
Absolutely. And I just want to clarify, just because in some countries there's a very thin line between, government and organized crime.
They are not in that country. There is no thin line, absolutely no line. This is a pariah state. They commit crimes against humanity. They have hundreds of political prisoners that were with me. So this crystal clear. There is no line division between the crime and the government. These guys are criminals.
Got it. Now, were there any details outside of saying like, hey, we think you are a U.S. spy? Well, first and foremost, what is your country of origin? Is it Venezuela?
I'm Venezuelan born. I'm Venezuelan born, and the other five guys also were Venezuelan born because, as I said, Citgo Petroleum is a U.S. based company but belongs to Venezuela. So I was a assignee of PDVSA because I did my career. I began my career in 1985 in PDVSA when PDVSA was the fifth oil and gas company of the world because Venezuela was, in the 80s was the second oil producer of the world. And today, Venezuela has the biggest oil reserves of the world, even above Saudi Arabia. People doesn't know, but Venezuela is a very, very rich country in oil. But the problem is the government. They have a very bad government that has ruined the economy.
Definitely. It sounds like that sounds chaotic, to be honest.
Totally chaotic. Totally chaotic. Yeah.
Totally. Now before that last trip, I know you said, you were, kind of on your way out. You were kind of over it at that point, but had you had any, I guess, any inkling that they were even, any other trouble thinking that you were spies, American spies, or had they even given you
No,
any inkling that this was even coming?
no. This was something totally machiavellically planified because these guys are very bad, but they're very good doing evil. So these guys, when I was there, is there that I begin to realize all the plot, all the things they created. It has been amazing, and I can tell you when I came back and I decided to write my book. One day I was contacted with a guy that was one of the negotiators behind the scene of our case, and he gave me a lot of information of things that happened, and I couldn't more or less understand all the planification they did to this because putting in context, that year Venezuela has been declared as an illegitimate government. They have imposed sanctions to the country and to all the government, and they also had done an oil embargo. It was a big deal. So that Venezuela was going in a very bad moment because of this regime. So they were asking to get us released, to get lifted the sanctions, and to get lifted the oil embargo. That was the first request they did for us. Can you imagine that your price is lift the oil embargo of a country?
Wow. Um, so I want to ask when when the when the RoboCops, I'm calling that undercovers, when they took you into custody inside, what were you feeling to be and to be taken and then to be put locked up?
Well, that's a very good question, and let me respond. It's kind of a long answer, but I'm going to put it in context. 1 month before, as I said, I flew to Caracas to ask for my retirement. When I was coming back, that is October 2017. My case happened in November 2017, so 1 month after. So I was flying back to Caracas. I received a phone call that Citgo Petroleum always did a big security and environment summit every year because one of the biggest standards of Citgo was the security and the environment, top tier here in the U.S. So they really take care very, very seriously the security and the environment. So they every year they did this big summit, and they brought all the people that were involved in those activities around the country because Citgo has operation in all over the U.S. 6,000 gas stations, thousands of pipelines, 3 big refineries. So it's a big company. So we brought, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people to Houston to that event. And when I asked that, because they asked me to close the event, I go to the closing, and every time they have a closing, they bring a speaker. Typically, it's a motivational speaker. So I asked who is going to be the speaker, and they told me that was going to be the Captain Phillips. Can you remember the movie of Tom Hanks, Captain Phillips? Well, that guy, that real Captain Phillips, he came to us. So he did his speech. I always remember his speech. His speech was navigating turbulent waters. So he was talking about, because as you recall, he was captured by the Somali pirates in Somalia. So he was a hostage. And he did this great speech, when he finished, he sit down with me in my table because I was the president. And when the guy sat down, I told him, wow, man, you went through a terrible situation. And that guy gave me some word that I still recall. He was saying that his situation was even worse, but because of the timing of the film, they reduced the for post production, But he told me that, the human being has inside of it an inner force that you always have, that unbreakable spirit that you can unlock it if you're connected with God. When that guy told me that, I got, that resonated a lot to me. I went to my house thinking that. I can tell you, 1 month after, when I was captured, that when we were going locked with handcuffs, going to the military basement that they were putting us, I was always thinking in that word of that guy. So mixed feelings. I was thinking why this is happening to me, but at the same time, that gave me a lot of strength. Those words of that guy, I today understand that this is true. And today, because I'm a leadership and resilient coach, I always teach that you can unlock that unbreakable spirit that everybody has inside, because that's what we did. That's what we did.
Now, being as though there's definitely the fine line between government and anything else there in Venezuela. Who was responsible for working to get you out of this situation? Was it something that the U.S. government had to step in for, or did Citgo kind of do their thing? Who was responsible for that, or who should have been responsible for that?
Okay, that's a very good question, because today I'm very proud and honored that I'm very connected to all the institutions that work here in the U.S. To bring hostages, American hostages, all over the U.S. There are several institutions, but the U.S. government, by that time, 1 year after a situation, because we became kind of a guinea pig of that situation, the U.S. government created a institution called the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affair. It's a office that is attached. It's a subsecretary of state attached to the State Department. So he's a big guy, and he's a guy that has rank of ambassador. His name is Roger Carsten, and he was appointed by Trump and was ratified by Biden. So that guy has been doing great. He's the guy in charge today in all the release all over the world. Every time you see a hostage that is released, you will see a tall guy with a beard. That is Roger Carsten. So that was a guy that brought us back. He stayed years negotiating with us. And the last year before we came back, he was authorized by this new government to make a direct negotiation. So he flew to Caracas the first time 1 year before we were released. So he began to have direct talks with the Venezuelan government. He did 3 flights to Caracas, and in the fourth uh, intention, he brought us back. He could have released. We came back through a prisoner swap of the 2 nephews of the regime, the president of Venezuela. So we were swapping a Caribbean island called San Vicente in Grenadine, and there was the swapping, movie style. You go to a plane, the other guys to the other plane, and I came back, and we came back under the protection of the U.S. government. We stayed in a military base in San Antonio, in a decompression program that they do for the prisoner of war. And well, after that, I was back. I'm here.
Wow. So I was going to ask, I have a piggyback question from Sid. Do you think your retirement has something to do with being captive? Because Citgo Venezuela owns it. Do you think your word of retirement may have triggered something and upset them?
Yeah, probably yes. That could have been part of, but no. This is something bigger. This is something bigger, is something that is more because the problem with this situation is that was all the geopolitical issue that was going, because during the previous administration, the Trump administration, they were beating hard this government, that they really wanted to take them out. So the Venezuelan government didn't have nothing to take care. So we were six guys, dual citizens, and for them was bingo. This is going to be our political pawns and the bargain chips, and that's what we became. They were not shy asking for us. It was publicly that they wanted to leverage us to get concessions. As I said, they begin asking for get the lift of the sanctions. They after begin to ask to get the oil embargo lifted. They begin to ask to get personal sanctions lifted, and then there was a famous drug lord that was here in the U.S. They were asking us to be swapped by that guy, a guy called Alex Saab. And at the end, the final negotiation was swapping the two nephews of the president of Venezuela. They were here in the U.S. because they were caught with drugs. They were here in Florida, in a Florida jail here, and they came back, through a presidential pardon, and that's why we got the prisoner swap. Because the problem with this type of situation, the hostage diplomacy, that it becomes really high politics. It's difficult. That's why it lasted so many years, because you had to have bipartisan agreements. The Congress has to agree. The government is difficult. I can tell you that I'm today connected with all the hostage community. I know cases in other countries. All the negotiations are very, very large negotiations. People stay 5, 6, 10, 12 years, because getting agreement between two governments is so difficult call. It's difficult. Sometimes the government has to swallow to take the decision. So it's not an easy call.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, being as though obviously Citgo is a huge company, you had a very prestigious position within the company. At what point, at what point did you feel like maybe that wasn't enough, or maybe it just didn't matter, or they wouldn't have gotten you? It just wouldn't matter. It wouldn't help your case. You were probably just a regular old person there. Was there at any point that you lost hope, or you just, you didn't have faith in the negotiations between the two countries at all?
Well, this for us was an evolution, really. The first year we were totally hopeless, because I'm not saying here to the audience, but the first year we were locked in a solitary confinement in a military base, in a basement, 3 stories down base, without windows. There was no fresh air. It was really, really, really terrible. The first year, not only that, because putting in context, as I said, the sanction was in 2017. Now we're in 2018. The effect of the sanction were being impacting in the economy of the country. So the people were starving. There was no food and no medicine, no gas. It's ridiculous. Being a oil country, there was no gas in the nation. So we were starving too, because there was no food. This guy didn't have food to provide us. So we were literally starving. I lost 100 pounds. So when I lost that, all of us, because we were separated, when we had the opportunity to meet us 1 year after, we looked like skeletons, all of us. So the negotiation began to evolve very bad. It even became worse, because at some point the Venezuelan government expelled the U.S. ambassador. Was recalled. When in diplomacy, when you recall an ambassador, it's because the relation is in the bottom. So that the U.S. government was recalled, and the U.S. didn't have no direct contact with the Venezuelan government. So what they did is they contacted the UN UN has a commission called the Arbitrary Detention Commission. Those guys flew to Caracas, and those guys begin to, to pressure the government to give us some better treatment, and they decided to allow us to our family bring food because they didn't have food. So my family, my eldest son, flew to Colombia. He moved to Colombia, and he began to buy food every week and send it to me. And somebody in Venezuela, they arranged with that person to cook and send me the food. That's the way I survived. They began to provide me food during 4 years. They stay doing it. Bring me the food. That allowed me two things. I could have food, I could have medicine, but at the same time, I began to smuggle letters inside that because I had to return the trash cans. So I began to smuggle letters with my wife, and that's why I began to have communication because I had 1 year without no communication. And when I began to smuggle those letters, when I came back, my wife had compiled it, and that's the base of what's going to be my book. My book is based on those letters that we wrote during 3 years.
Wow. Um, I want to ask. So, y'all were pretty much being tortured. So that torture came from the negotiations. Can you tell us some of the conditions that you were in while being locked up so that we can be transparent to the audience, some of the things that y'all went through?
Yeah. That's a good question. We were put in a place that is called the submarine because it's like a vessel. It's very confined. Doesn't, as I said, doesn't have windows. That has a small door, but with a very very tiny window. They always keep it locked. So I was locked. I stayed months without going outside. I didn't have fresh air. There was a very so it was really extreme situation. I was sweating all the day. Literally breathing, my own breath. I had pneumonia. I began to have bronchitis. I began to suffer scabies. I began to suffer scabies all over my skin. I was really thinking that I was gonna die. So if the UN didn't appear, we die because these guys really were trying to break us. It was like a daily torture what they're doing with us. And 1 year after the UN flew to Caracas, so they flexibilized the relations, and then we were put the six together. The six guy with 1 year after we were put together, they gave me the first phone call. I could talk with my wife, and I said I began to smuggle letters. My first letter I smuggled on December 31, 2018, I remember. So 1 year after I was there, I sent my first letter, and I began to send letters every 2 3 days, and my wife replied me every 2 3 days, and we created like a secret code that if they discovered the letters, and they never discovered the letters, by the way, and the letters are here, and I could manage to know what was really going. I began to have very good information that how the situation was evolving, and of course that began to give you more hope and more faith that the thing will gonna be released.
Absolutely. That has to be insane, just not really knowing what's going on. Just not having a sense of time, not knowing what's developing in you all situations. So I know that was very anxiety filled, excuse me.
Yeah, of course.
For sure.
Yeah, but as I said, that the human nature has that thing inside. That's incredible how you can survive situation because today I'm very convinced, of course, the hand of God, and that when we get together, the six, we create a very strong bond, helping each other. So the situation really changed for us.
Absolutely. And did all of you, make it out okay? All six of you?
Yes, yes. We saw us recently. We're not contacting on a daily basis because we were, when we were relieved, we said we're done with you guys. Too much time living together. We were living in a tiny room. We were living in a 100 square foot closet. It's,
Hmm.
it's like living in a closet. So when came back, we said we're done with you, but we're in contact. We're in contact, and everybody's okay. Everybody's okay. We did it.
Absolutely.
We did it great.
I'm glad everybody, now were there any, while you all were there, were there any like close calls, emergency close calls, or was anybody ever sick? And that's a long time, 5 years to not be living correctly. So were there any kind of, immediate emergent situations that you all had amongst each
Oh, I
other?
went through a lot. I can say all the day here. I suffered 2 times COVID. The first time I was transferred to because the government wanted to recognize that there was COVID in Venezuela. Remember, it's a communist regime. They always lie to the people. So they did like a camouflage hospital in a hotel, in a private hotel. So I was transferred to that hotel. I stayed like 10 days having a severe treatment because I was almost, you know, getting intubed, and I was in a ICU unit, and I stayed 10 days there. After that, the pressure, because I managed to tell my family. So I always had channels of communication. So I managed to get the information to my family that I was disappeared. My son that was in Colombia, he was handling all my situations. He was in charge to all the contact with the U.S. government, the press. So he called a guy, I'm not gonna name it, a very, very famous journalist here in the U.S., and that guy put a breaking news that I was disappeared. So it created a big noise in Venezuela. So they released us back because I was disappeared. I was disappeared. After that, that was maybe in 2020 when the pandemic began. In 2021, 1 year after, I suffered a heart attack and I fainted, and I stayed 3 days in coma. I was transferred to a very famous hospital in Caracas called the Hospital de Clínicas Caracas, the most famous hospital in Caracas. I was transferred there because by that time the negotiations were going on, and this guy was scared that I could die because if I died, the negotiation failed. So they really wanted to get the negotiation with the U.S. government, and I was transferred to that hospital. 3 days after I recovered my memory because I fainted, and when I awake, I didn't remember who I was. So I went through a lot of situations. I'm a miracle being here, to tell you the truth. I'm a miracle.
Absolutely, because well, I'm glad they at least, for their whatever they wanted to do, their whole goal, at least it was to keep you alive. So, they really could have been like, whatever, we got the
No,
others.
but that moment we were really high value for them because the relation was totally anything that was going to get agree was among a release. So the U.S. government was very clear. If you go to the statement at that time, uh, during the Trump administration and during the Biden administration, both administrations were very, very clear in the statement that any negotiation went if we were released. So that was a mandatory. We had to get released. So we had a really high value for Venezuela at that time.
So as we see Venezuela, well, different countries, but we're talking about Venezuela. They are the true gang members,
Oh
the
yeah,
mafia,
that is the
pretty
mafia, my
much.
friend. That is like a mafia. It's literally the mafia. Yeah.
Because when we went to Aruba, they told us do not go across the Venezuela slide because it's that border, and they warn you not to go on that side. So it must be more dangerous than we know.
Well, let me tell you,
Um,
I went last week to Washington because I was attending a gala in a foundation that worked with the hostage community called the James Foley Legacy Foundation. So I went to the
Mm-hmm.
gala and I met guys that were released last year from Venezuela, another guys that were in Venezuela, some guys that were released from Iran. There are 5 guys that were released from Iran, a guy that was released from Afghanistan. And when you talk with these guys, the stories are the same. These are pariah countries. They do the same. These are copy paste. They reply the techniques. They these guys are evil. This is like working with the mafia.
Mm-mm-mm. Well, I have a question. Can you tell us, because going through 5 years, 1,775 days of being captive in very poor conditions, how did it traumatize you? And what is your mental state of health now from going through that?
Well, it's a very good question, but because when I came back, as I said, we were under the protection of the U.S. government. We went through a program. The program is called the PISA. The PISA program is a program that they use for the prisoner of war and the mission in actions in the military. We went through the program. So it was a very, comprehensive program to decompress yourself. After that, I went to a big trauma center that is in North Carolina. It's called WakeMed. I stayed also like 2 weeks there. And by the way, I became very friend of the director of that center. He's prologuing my book. The guy is the guy who's prologuing my book. I asked him to if he could prologue my book. He said, of course, yeah. So we became really good friends because he got really surprised the way we did it, because this is something that, by the way I crafted my coaching program is based on that, because the human being has a lot of things inside that you don't know, that really you can do things beyond what you really think that you can do. Because, for example, we were in a very dark place and we were hopeless. But when we begin to realize that our family was working hard for us, and the other families, they did a wonderful campaign. I can tell you, it's amazing that the six family what they did. Today, I'm still surprised. They went big to the press. To the press. They went to all the press. You can go to 2019, 2020 time frame, and you will see a lot of news about us in all over the place. They went to CNN, Reuters, NCBC, CBS, ABC, Times, Wall Street Journal, all unimaginable press, they went. So the noise was so big that, by the way, the press put us a name. We became like a brand. We became to be the Citgo Six. So that today, we were called the Citgo Six. That was our name. It became like a brand. That's why my book is called From Hero to Billion, my true story of the Citgo Six, because I became one of the Citgo Six. And the Citgo Six began to be really a name, because even the U.S. government, when they asked for us, was released the Citgo Six. We became that name. Everybody began to call us Citgo Six. And the Citgo Six, the pressure that the family did was so big. They created, with other families, other dozen of families, they created a campaign called the Bring Our Family Home campaign, that today is one of the biggest a campaign here in the U.S. to release American hostages, and they created a mural with our faces in Washington, in Georgetown. Today there are 3 murals. There are 4 murals here in the U.S. One in Washington, one in Arizona, one here in Houston, and the other is in Denver. So there are 4 murals, and there's going to be one, I believe, in California, in Los Angeles. So this campaign has becoming big, and those foundations that support the hostage community, because this is a big thing that people are not aware how big this is impacting families here in the U.S. Now the situation that's going on in the Middle East is impacting a lot of Jewish families too. So this is a big deal. So now that is like a movement that has been created to support previous and after, because when you come back, people think, oh, great, you're released. No, it's a new beginning. It's a new beginning. So I, when I decided to talk, I have a therapist that I see her every Thursday. My therapist, every Thursday I'm with her. We became friends. By the way, I met him in person in Washington because she was also invited. So we did Zooms every week. I have more than 1 year doing it, and I met him in person 1 week ago. And my therapist, what she tells me is that the way I decided to talk about this, I became public speaking. I'm speaking, I'm writing, I have articles, I do interviews, and she tells me that has helped me in my healing process because that way I have been putting all the situation out. But I'm not gonna say this is easy. This is a very very complex process.
Now, my question is, um, so the presidential election happened kind of midway into your captivity. How did that set on you? Because I know it's like, you had one administration kind of, you just getting started with getting what you need, the information you need, the negotiations, and then we're going into, a different president, which was the president that it was. So how did that work out for y'all? Was the process to get you all released still streamlined? Did it put you back into your progress? Did it make you lose hope any? What was that process like?
That's a very great question because I talk about that in my book, and I'm gonna say a little bit here because the Trump administration was really working hard to bring us back. Really, really working hard. They were pushing very hard on a daily basis. Our family was being attended. My family went 2 times to the White House, and she was attended by the State Department, Mike Pompeo, every time. So they were really committed. So when the election came, you know what this guy did? They went to they begin to pressure our trial in the mid of the election. So 1 week before the election in the U.S., we were sentenced. I got a sentence of 13 years and $2.5 million fine. That was my sentence. So this was the way they wanted to set the tone to whoever will won the elections. The election came Biden, and 1 week after Biden took office, our family was in a meeting with Blinken. Blinken had a meeting with all the family, with not only with the six family, with all the American family that have been hosted 1 week after. So the new administration took the case really serious. And for us was really a very good news that the Ambassador Carsten that was appointed by Trump was ratified. He's still in the office. I met him last week. And it was very good because that there was continuity in the relation. And I'm gonna say the situation today is much better than when this situation happened to us. Very much better. There's more alignment in the government, all the institutions. There in this event that I attended last week, there was bipartisan people there. There were Republican and Democrats. So because this is a national security thing. When one of the congressmen, he was talking something that really caught my attention very hard because he was saying that I don't know if the people recall the hostage crisis in 1979. That was this movie Argus, the from Ben Affleck. Okay, that during the hostage crisis in 1979, in here in the U.S. it became to be a national thing. All the Americans were together in a daily basis. And I don't know, you remember, they created the yellow ribbon. So everybody put a yellow ribbon in their trees of their house. So it became a big national thing. So what the intention today is that with this new movement, that because there are still a lot of Americans being captured in a lot of countries, is create this national security level awareness. The people be aware because unfortunately the people are not aware. Every time I talk this, the people is jaw dropping. The people don't even think that people are, and this is something that can happen to anybody because the people that get caught are not politicians. They're normal guys that maybe with a high profile are in a business trip, like my case, or they're doing a summit or a seminar or a congress or a family visit, because there are people that sometimes are dual citizens, you know.
Okay. Well, I want to ask real quick, what administration do you felt as though did more work for you or work harder to get you released, or was it like a even? Because as we see sometimes as politicians, some want more recognition on certain things, and it's strictly political for face. So, did you see a difference in the political parties of trying to genuinely help you return home to your family?
Well, that's a very good question, because all both administrations, I'm gonna say they were working hard. Both, and I'm gonna say the first administration was really working hard. By the way, there was a negotiation that was almost ready to be done during the Trump administration that for some reason didn't happen. But because again, this is a very high thing. The only situation that happened is because Venezuela. Uh, Unfortunately, it has a lot of relation with Cuba. And you know that the Cuban here in Florida and in the area of Florida are very, very powerful. So, you know, so all that situation, Venezuela, Cuba, was interfering in our situation. And this is something that today I always, and all the foundation that work in this area talk about this. This is people being captured, human beings. So this is something beyond the politics. So what we said is put the politics aside and have the moral courage and take the proper decision to bring the people back. Because now that I know what is the situation being hostage, now that I know that suffering that my family went through, because it's not only you, it's all your family. This is devastating for the family, from the financial, from the psychological and mental health. People cannot imagine all the suffering the families goes. So now that I'm connected with all this community, I know families. I know them in person. I am seeing their faces. I have talked with them, and you hear the stories. Wow, you know, it's something that the politics have to put in their shoes. These are people, real people, going through this situation.
Absolutely. And that actually brings me to a point, or a question. Sometimes us, you're a CEO, but at the end of the day, you always have somebody above you. And what did Citgo really, were they holding your family down throughout the process? Like, were they financially assisting? Were you still receiving what had been your salary? Were they, there for in any capacity for your families or your situation while you guys were there? Or did that affect what your retirement might look like? Or, did they do what they should have done for you to
Well,
support
let me
you
tell you,
after that situation?
this is a very good question too, because even worse the situation, because as I said, Sigo has ties with the PDVSA company. PDVSA is the national company, but at the same time, the PDVSA oil company, the board is appointed by the Venezuelan government. So what this guy did is, when we were caught, they removed all the board and they appointed new board appointed by the government, by the Venezuelan government. So these guys that were in appointed in the new board were our enemies. So what support they're gonna give to you? So they were trying to to so there was no support. There was no support.
They really plotted this big time. Whoa. I have a question because I want to go back really, really, really quick because we're almost at time, and I want to ask this because of some of the conditions. How did y'all take showers or use the bathrooms? Like this is, I mean,
We didn't have running water. Let me tell you, we didn't have running water. We have a tank of 500 liters that was filled every week by a vacuum truck. One of my two guys that they are, tank engineers, one of my colleagues, they did a calculation how much water you can use in a daily basis. So we were using 3 gallons per day per person, 3 gallons per day. With 3 gallons, we had to do everything, even take shower and even do your needs. 3 gallons, and we were counting it, and we did it by years. It's funny because when I came back and I landed in the military base in San Antonio, I, we came with the same clothes that we were from the jail to San Antonio. So I had like one day with the same clothes, and they put us in a ER room, and they were, you know, checking all the vitals, blood tests, all the stuff. And I was with a nurse, and I told her if I could take a shower, and I go to take my shower, my first shower in years. And when I turned the shower, the hot shower, I begin to, oh man, I don't know. I stayed 1 hour. I don't know how much time, but I heard somebody knocking the door. Mr. Pereira, are you okay? No, I'm super okay. This is my first shower in years. So yeah, you have to deal with the situation. It's what it is.
So how did y'all use the restroom? Did they have a toilet in there?
We
Like,
we had like a toilet, but let me tell you, even with that, we were in a very hygienic situation because all of us were cleaning the small closet on a daily basis. We were having that tiny place the most neat as possible because we were plan guys. We were plan guys. We decided to create like a survivor plan. So we did a lot of things, and one of that was having a daily cleaning of the room. Everybody was appointed to. We did like an agenda. So I had like to clean every 3 days. I had to clean. So if I cleaned on Monday, so I knew that next Wednesday I had to clean. Nobody had to tell me nothing. So I went in the clean. Everybody has a routine to clean, to eat, to everything was during a routine. We were like hamsters in a cage doing things.
Sheesh. Now, Demetria, did you want to go ahead and swap it out at this time?
yep, let's go ahead and kick it off. So we are at time. I want to thank you, but before we leave, we have two things from me and Sid. Can you give the audience advice on ways that if they are captive or even your situation now through your healing journey, some ways, some techniques or advice how you got through what you went through.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that I decided to become a leadership and resilience coach. I created a program called Life Pills for a Survival Guide. LPSG is my coaching program. My coaching program helps people and companies and business owners that how they can apply these techniques to their life and to their business, because this has to do with a lot with leadership techniques and survivor techniques that we combined. So that's what I do in my coaching program. I'm doing public speaking about this. I have a speech called From Captivity to Freedom, Embracing Resilience with the Love, the Faith, and the Hope, that I go to corporations, NGOs, and foundations, and it's to boost the morale. And I wrote my book. My book is based on that. My book is going to be out maybe in 2 weeks in Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and physical store. It's called From Hero to Villain, my true story of Citgo 6. And again, everything is based on my experience and what I call my legacy. That anything in life, you can survive it. I'm a testament of that you can
Mhm.
survive. So
So
anybody
can
that's
you get
going to struggling in life, my friend, believe me, you can do it. I
so
I,
what's
I
one
walked
thing
away.
that you Oh, I'm sorry. So, what's one thing that they can do to do that that you personally use? One technique.
Well, I can tell you, my technique is based on five very simple principles. Stay calm and focus on the situation. Be positive, have a positive mindset. Be connected with the people that love you. Take care of your mental, physical health, and be connected with your God, your superior entity, and take it from. And if you do that things, my friend, anything in life you're gonna survive. Very simple. Very simple.
Definitely. Now we are at the part of our show that we do like to call shameless plug. So you see your banner scrolling across the bottom here. You can let our viewers know where they can contact you, where they can use your services, anything you have for sale, anything merchandise that you're trying to draw traffic to. You have the floor.
Okay, well, I refreshed yesterday, finished my new web page. So if you go to joseconnect.com, joseconnect.com, very easy, you will find there everything because I have my page there from my coaching program. It has a landing page. You can contract me on one-on-one for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. We can talk, we can tailor make my coaching program. I have the page for my speaking. I do speech virtual and also person for companies, and there is also my page of my book. My book is today in pre-order. There's a link for the pre-order, but if you want to buy it, it's gonna be in the store very soon. And also, I have a program that if you want, for example, you have a company and you want to bring me to your state, you can buy a set of book, and I can go and give you the free speech based on the quantity of the book. We can arrange. So you can go to Jose Connect. You will find everything in that page. You will see all my medias, all the interviews, the podcast, everything that I do. I have a video YouTube channel where I talk about this. I have a newsletter that I do every Sunday. And there is there you can link in there. And now I'm doing a radio talk show every Monday morning in a Christian channel too that is called HOD Network TV. And I have a program that is the same name that my newsletter called Building Resilience, because today I talk about building resilience and leadership. That's not my thing. So I'm over. You can find everything in my webpage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We want to thank you for being a guest on Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. Your testimony was so powerful, and I want to thank you so much, just for sharing your life experience. And it's amazing to see your strength right now after being held, say, hostage for 1,775 days, and your mental state to uphold and be so positive to the communities, to the survivor, to the families, just in general, abroad, domestic and internationally. So we want to thank you and the whole entire Citgo Six. We want to give our praises and blessings to you, fellas, for your courage and your strengths and just having faith and believing in God to get you through this.
Well, I'm today. I'm very connected to my church. By the way, I told you that this morning, 6 a.m. I was in a prayer in my church. So I wake very early praying, worship God, because today I believe that I'm here because I became a miracle of God, but I also have the calling that I have to follow.
Uh-oh. Jose. Oh, he just froze. I think he just froze. We want to thank you for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we're going to continue to share life experiences in hopes that you will start the journey to healing. So anyone that has been through being captive, through internationally returning home, we want to give our praises out to you to keep your hope and strength. And hopefully Jose's testimony will touch you so that you can start your journey to healing.